Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. And as we know, Xbox has made a lot of really aggressive business moves over these last couple of years. Everything from a multi-platform push, which has now just had an exclamation point put right next to it with Halo going over to PlayStation, all the way to console prices going up, Game Pass prices going up, and of course the attempt at pushing video game prices to $80 in their own ecosystem, beginning with, out of all games, The Outer Worlds 2. The greed has been real, and the question has been why? What was the marching order given? When was it given? And we've got the whole layout here thanks to an article from Jason Schreier of Bloomberg. Let's go through it and break it down. If you're new here and you're into what's going on with Xbox, consider subscribing. So the article is titled, Microsoft Pushes Xbox Division to Hit Higher Profit Margins. Simply put, over the last 2 years, executives at the Seattle-based software have set an across-the-board goal of 30% accountability margins, a term Microsoft uses in lieu of profit margins, according to people familiar with the business. The gaming division, which includes dozens of studios, has responded by canceling products, raising prices, and slashing thousands of jobs, said the people who asked not to be identified, discussing non-public information. The average profit margin in the video game industry in recent years has ranged between 17% and 22%, according to estimates from S&P Global Market Intelligence, while coming in between 10 and 20% over the last 6 years at Xbox. Court documents from 2023 revealed that Microsoft's gaming business had a 12% profit margin for the first 9 months of the company's 2022 fiscal year. The new goal, which hasn't been previously reported, is at the outer range of what a gaming studio can typically reach in a boom year, said Neil Barber, an analyst with S&P Global. A 30% or better margin is usually reserved for a publisher that is really nailing it. Now, when was this marching order given and who did it? Let's keep going. In the past, game makers at Xbox weren't asked to hit specific numerical targets, said the people, and were largely told to focus on making the best games possible without worrying too much about finances. The new target was implemented in fall 2023 by Microsoft Chief Financial Officer Amy Hood, whose team has taken a larger role in the gaming business in recent years. 2023 is easily the most important year of this generation for Xbox, simply because so many things that happened were exactly as we envisioned entering this generation. Remember, we started this generation saying, hey, Xbox, please do what PlayStation did to you. Like, just compete with really exciting exclusives. And so when we saw Xbox going and buying Bethesda, we went, all right, I see what you're doing now. You're going to buy these companies up and release their games exclusively. And 2023 really represented that. There's Starfield, there's Hi-Fi Rush, there's Redfall. All of these were exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem, and they represented a range of quality from Xbox. Starfield was the most high-profile game of the year for Xbox and was a top 10 selling game in one of the most important years in gaming history, 2023. But also Hi-Fi Rush to me represented that old spirit of Xbox, that Sega-fused spirit of the original Xbox. And then you throw in the old guard there in Forza Motorsport coming out that year, and it's like, yeah, this is what we envisioned with Xbox, but they also continued to be aggressive and pursue Activision Blizzard, which they also purchased that year. That brought the eye of Satya Nadella and Amy Hood onto the gaming division, and why we've seen increased scrutiny since then. You see, leaving 2023, for those who have not paid close attention to the Xbox community, what was basically happening was everyone was riding high. Like, that was the year we wanted from Xbox. There was an exciting shadow drop. There was a high-profile exclusive. There was the old stuff like Forza. Awesome. And, you know, again, we try to forget about Redfall that year. But nonetheless, entering 2024, it's like, okay, Bethesda's on a roll. You've got Xbox Game Studios pumping out a bunch of games. Now Activision is in the fold. It's going to be like a new exclusive every quarter. How is this going to fuel Game Pass? Prices are staying the same. This is really exciting. We saw then how the rumors started to break out. All of a sudden, Xbox is going multi-platform. It's the 4 games only, which we all knew was not going to be the case. All that you have seen over these last couple of years is because of a ridiculous 30% profit margin that's been set. Like, above and beyond average, okay? If the average is 17 to 22% and you see that Xbox is 10 to 20%, I understand why you might want a little bit more. I'm going to be fair for a moment here, okay? Ignoring the really bad choices they made, I understand why if you make the biggest acquisition in video game history, and then you also have Bethesda, and then you have a ton of Xbox Game Studios, and you have a really appealing before the price hike subscription service, and you have cloud gaming, I would also look at it and be like, we're pushing 10% profit, maybe. Like, you're still making a lot of money when you start to quantify that in the millions and millions and millions of dollars that this company makes. But I understand looking at the percentage going, we have enough content that should be able to push us to a little bit of a higher margin. If Xbox said, we want to push more consistently into the average range, let's do that, and that's what they did, I would understand that. But when you set 30%, it's like we're going from below average to way above average to a place where analysts are saying, this is where you're really nailing it. Xbox as a publisher has not really nailed it. It's been a good generation for them in the terms of output. I look at games really from Bethesda mostly though. Hi-Fi Rush, Indiana Jones stick out in my brain as like amazing moments, or Double Fine's Psychonauts 2, which really wasn't an Xbox exclusive, but a lot of Xbox Game Studio stuff. The main one I could really give kudos to off the top of my head is something like Forza Horizon 5. Otherwise, things like Halo Infinite, South of Midnight, Avowed, these did not meet my expectations at all. The Outer Worlds 2 happened to exceed it though, as did games like Grounded. Pentiment was a nice little treat. So I would define the output as good, but that's why they're getting the results on the profit margins of good, because there hasn't been that, say, outpouring of quality like we got with the PS4 generation from PlayStation, where it was just like, oh, you know, God of War is going to be amazing. Oh, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn is going to kick ass. Like, Spider-Man is going to be amazing. You knew, and that just drove a lot of people in, drove a lot of interest. With Xbox, they failed to establish their quality marker, and that really was with, I think, Halo Infinite. Like, Halo Infinite being so troubled, being delayed out of the launch window, and coming out in what I think was a solid state. I think we gave Halo Infinite a lot of crap, rightfully so, but a lot of it was the post-launch support and the lack of preparation on 343's end. Like, the mishandling of that franchise says everything about the Xbox brand, and that's where things really started to go off the rails. Here's the real kicker to me, this next line here. Not every project is expected to hit the 30% profit threshold, said the people, but many Xbox developers and groups have been presented with this target. Moving forward, games that are either cheap to make or deemed more likely to generate significant revenue windfalls may take priority over riskier bets, said the people, while Xbox's floundering hardware division may face a significant rethinking, which we just talked about earlier this week. That's why I wanted to do that first, was looking at like what the future of Xbox is, which is effectively a PC, and pretty much using a console skin to keep the appeal of the console for the console bros like myself and the sisters out there, while at the same time kind of just shoving them all into a PC space without them really knowing it. Kind of Trojan horsing it a little bit. But two things come to mind here when I read these sets of quotes here. First and foremost, that developers are being made aware of profit thresholds. What does that incentivize them to do? Okay, I have this really cool creative idea that I want to pursue. I can't really do that because that's probably riskier. And so what I'll do instead is think about how much money my project can make and present only safe bets. I think, in all fairness, Xbox has kept this generation pretty interesting with the games that they have put forward. Something like a Hi-Fi Rush. Hell, I didn't like it that much, but something like a South of Midnight, which should not have taken nearly as long as it did, but games like that, or Pentiment, I do appreciate a lot. Now, all of a sudden, these are games that I just don't think we're going to see really at all, because I know they'd qualify as the cheap type of game that you sort of fly under the radar. Like Keeper came out recently, and that was so under the radar that where like Xbox, when they're going through like their earnings report, won't even notice that as a dent. But it's incentivizing developers, artists in turn, to think about purely profit to get their games across the board. And there's a push and pull in that. You have to make something that speaks to you and myself, the players out there. At the same time, you need to make something that speaks to an investor, someone who's been through the pitching process. This is a perfect encapsulation of what it's like right now. Everyone we pitched to was looking for like pennies in the terms of budget, simply because what they wanted was something so cheap that if it failed, obviously it doesn't affect them at all. But it's games like, I look at a Balatro as an example, where it's like one person, obviously a very tiny budget because of that, and it's just a cheap game that goes viral and makes so much more than the investment they put into it. So it's those games that are just so cheap that you can't worry about failure, and then it can just generate that significant revenue through like viral marketing, through word of mouth, that sort of thing. Or if you're a big company, like say an Xbox, and you own Fallout as an IP, this is what I talked about a few months ago. It gets complicated. Oh yeah, we're going to get a lot of Fallout. We're going to get a lot of Elder Scrolls. There's a selfish part of me that's like, hell yeah. Like Obsidian after the Outer Worlds 2, I think still should absolutely make a follow-up to New Vegas, because basically that game is New Vegas in space in a lot of ways. But what if Obsidian wanted to make the Outer Worlds 3, but because of how terrible the marketing was for Outer Worlds 2, it kind of bombed the sales of the game, and Xbox is like, well, you could make that, but like, we know what happens if the sales underperform. You need to hit that 30%. Will it hit that 30%? Okay, I guess we'll go make this instead. It starts to encourage safe bets. And again, I understand, I'm not going to talk like a seasoned vet, but I understand the tug of war that is. Like, you do need to make something appealing, and I think there is a little bit of incentivizing developers to kind of wake up, smell the roses, and be like, hey, we have to give the player something they want, but there is also that shared relationship of it's got to be something they want to make too. So when I feel like developers are being informed, like, these are our new profit targets, it just changes the way you think about a project. You're no longer thinking about, I want to make something that's going to resonate with a lot of people, or something that's good and will catch the attention of a lot of people. It's just, I want to make something that's going to make money for you so I don't lose my job. And I say this as someone who loves PlayStation and their games, but if you want a good example of what that feels like, look at PlayStation this generation. I'm not trying to undersell the third-party exclusives they did that were interesting. You know, your Stellar Blades, of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, no longer exclusive now, but formerly were. There are great games like that. Returnal sticks out as another one that kind of breaks that PlayStation mold. Like, they do have these new exciting games that are coming from these special deals they make. However, when I'm looking at like their first-party output, it was a lot of safe choices this generation, right? Every single generation of PlayStation was introducing new mascots for the most part. Like, you get Uncharted in PS3, and I know, of course, we get Uncharted 4 in PS4, but the idea was like, I feel The Last of Us was more of like the PS4 generation. And then you get into PS5, and it's more Last of Us remasters and the TV show. You get Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch in PS4, and then as great as Yote looks like, you get another iteration of that. You get Returnal, and then you get Saros. You get God of War Ragnarok. You get Horizon Zero Dawn, and then whatever the name of the Horizon Forbidden West, that's what it was. You get a lot of the same thing, and that's not a bad thing if you love that thing and you know you love that thing. Like, there's something to be said about the confident purchase and the good feeling of that. But if you are a player like me who became a little disenfranchised with that approach because it just felt so safe, and like, I know what that is. Like, I'm not super interested in getting to that right now. It pulls you away from that urgency to play it. I would say expect Xbox to fall into that pocket. Like, whatever they look at that's generating revenue, I think they're going to go back to that well multiple times. Like, I don't think, for example, you get Elder Scrolls 6. I know it sounds crazy to be saying Elder Scrolls 7 in a sentence, but like, I don't think Xbox is going to be like, yeah, we'll wait until Elder Scrolls 7 in like another 15 years. They're going to be like, oh, you're going to go work on Fallout 5 now? Find someone to work on Elder Scrolls 7 in the meantime. Please and thank you. Or an Elder Scrolls-like game. Why do you think Bethesda, after insisting forever that they would not do remasters, all of a sudden remastered Oblivion and is going to remaster Fallout 3? After saying, Todd was saying for years, like, we just want to give you the original game because we don't want to touch anything. Like, I think Oblivion Remaster is the best you get in that mentality because it really is the original game, just prettier. I know I'm beating it over the head, but like, this is the type of change it sort of sows in, which is why I find it a little bit concerning. The article continues on, though. Over the same period, Xbox's strategy has undergone a major shift. And he talks a little bit about Game Pass here. It's $30 a month. Developers are told to throw their game into that subscription service. The change, in the second paragraph here, has hurt Xbox game sales, according to The People, a continuing challenge that may make it even more difficult for studios to achieve a 30% profit margin. To account for the lost sales, Xbox offers its developers a credit, which is called member-weighted value, and is calculated based on several factors, such as the number of hours that Game Pass players collectively spend on a particular title. The opaque formula seems to favor games in which players can spend the most amount of hours, such as online multiplayer titles, according to people familiar with the calculations. So yeah, that's what I want to see. We'll go back to PlayStation again. I mean, Xbox, in all fairness, has handled their kind of live service transition a lot better, excluding Halo Infinite. I do look at something like Forza Horizon 5, and I'm like, yeah, like, Xbox does pretty solid with online games. But if you've been paying attention to Halo rumors, we heard how there's a Halo game like Fortnite on the way, and that was not revealed at the Halo World Championship Series. We just got Halo Campaign Evolved, but I wonder what that is and what the incentive to make that is. Of course, we all assumed Xbox Game Pass was hurting sales. Now you're telling first-party developers who are having their sales hurt by your subscription service to sell more copies of a game. Otherwise, the only way to offset that is engagement. So single-player games are come in, play, and you're done. And in the case of Game Pass, as many developers such as Machine Games recently have documented, many players just float into games and leave immediately with Game Pass because it's a bit of like taste testing. I mean, that's the appeal of the service. I don't blame the players for that, but Xbox is trying to incentivize developers now to also make engagement-driven video games. They may not be saying it directly to them, like, you have to make multiplayer games. But again, when you tell your developers, these are our profit targets, and we get it, you know, you're going to sell less copies of your game because you're on Game Pass. So we're going to offer you this credit. And if you get players to engage with your game on Game Pass, that's also value. So if I'm working at Xbox and I'm interested in keeping my job in a company that's slashing people that are even making potential profit plays, I'm like, okay, I'm either making a multiplayer game, a big IP game, or like, I don't know, like what's the safest bet I can make? I don't think this incentivizes you to go like, screw it, I'm going to go ahead and make something like really ambitious and unique and try to carve a new path with a new IP. It'll still happen. I'm not acting like it'll never happen, but this entire system with these insanely high targets de-incentivizes that, in my opinion. I think companies like Obsidian Entertainment, who have had a history of budgeting their games really well, as they've talked about, where they create their games with the idea that they're going to spectacularly fail, so they overperform, will thrive without a single problem in this Xbox ecosystem. But there are other companies that I look at, like, again, I always go back to Compulsion Games. I'm like, taking 7 years to make the $40 South of Midnight and it dropping and its peak Steam player counts, frankly, not good at all. I don't care if it's a day one Game Pass game, but like this boutique artistic driven game is not driving any sort of attention, and Xbox had to fund that for a while. Or Hellblade 2 even, I get that there's like a technical advantage in having Ninja Theory, but like, is that really driving a lot of players where it's going to drive insane profit margins with how long you spend on it versus what you get out of it and what the game is priced at? Like in any entertainment industry, there's always been the clash of the artist and the business, but now you're kind of putting your artists in a position to be businessmen and women. And I just look at that and go, like, that can be a recipe for like success if we get a lot of good stuff from IP we care about. Like, are we going to get more Fable? Like, we've all asked for like, oh, we'd love to see like Fable remasters or remakes of some kind. That would be cool on top of the new thing that we're getting. I'd love to see, of course, I've mentioned so many times, Fallout remasters or Fallout spinoffs or Elder Scrolls spinoffs. I mean, the list goes on. Halo spinoffs. Like, man, Helldivers 2 really shook Xbox awake to get that partnership done, because Helldivers just feels like it should be a Halo game. And kudos to Arrowhead for recognizing that. So is Xbox more incentivized to do more spin-off projects with the Halo franchise? Or are they going to go the route that they've kind of been doing, like a Halo 1 remake? Nice and safe. I mean, I'm still interested in it. I really hope it's great, but, you know, nice and safe. Or Gears of War Reloaded. Really safe decision there. Will they do the same for Gears 2, Halo 3, Gears 3, and so on? Probably. So, again, I would just prepare yourself mentally for an era coming up of safe Xbox decisions that'll start to kind of show itself over the next few years. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Very interesting article from Schreier. Really appreciate this insight because, again, the big question with all of these business decisions was why. And myself and Cog were saying on Defining Duke so many times, like, I'm waiting for that Schreier expose that just gives us the why. Like, we had our speculation, like probably Amy Hood, Satya pushing like these kind of profit plays, but like how much and what's the insight on that? Now we know like developers are being made aware and stuff. Like, this is the stuff I'm looking for. So just great reporting from Jason. Really helpful information here. Ladies and gentlemen, I kick it over to you now. Let me know your thoughts on this. Of course, link down below Jason's article if you want to read it for yourself. But I'll catch you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.